This is RobTheBank's $1 million a month YouTube funnel. And what you're about to watch is an advanced tactical breakdown from somebody who's actually scaled a coaching business to $160,000 a month using YouTube Organic. The sections we're going to cover in this video are his top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel tactics, along with his very eccentric branding that make up his ability to print cash. Starting at the top of the funnel, the core info around what Rob does is he has 3 different content sections that are in-house, and he has 1 different content section that is outsourced. So he does TikTok shorts, Instagram shorts, and YouTube shorts all through his team that he actively manages, and then he has a clipping team that is outsourced through WOP. When it comes to how he actually produces this content, here are the styles. First off, we have the Rob core style, which is pretty much comprised of a fast-moving clip with instrumental music in the background and then usage of some kind of pop culture reference, whether it's from a movie or sports. And then in addition to that, he will either bring up a study of some known fact or a personal experience to hook the viewer and then begin to deliver them a lesson. The next kind of content he does is the TJR style. Now, Rob is a Puerto Rico native, meaning that he is also probably very good friends with TJR, and because of this, the style of spam posting, which TJR does roughly 16 to 20 times a day on TikTok and then takes the best performing ones to re-upload them onto Instagram Reels. That style is very time intensive, and because of this, it's been something that Rob hasn't been too great at, only averaging around 2 to 3, honestly, per day, but then going into spurts where he actually just doesn't do it at all. Beyond that, a style that he's also pioneered just on Instagram Reels is what I call text heavy. This is using some form of B-roll in the background and then layering over text on top that is oftentimes meant to just be controversial, in addition to using trending audio as well. This is a commonly known style. And finally, after that, to align with what he does at the clipping army over here, we have the open sourced content. And what this means is that anybody who joins his clipping army is getting paid on a commission, and therefore they're going to experiment and use creativity to create the best content possible. Now, to actually show you what has been working for him, the TJR style has not been that effective. The text heavy style has not been that effective. Where he's really making the majority of his attention is the Rob core style and having this pushed on TikTok. But then more importantly, mainly through Instagram Reels has been Rob's big winner. The TikTok has been trying to actually emulate the TJR style and the text heavy style, and it really hasn't worked that well. And then Shorts is also a large contributor, but the main money winner and where he's seen majority of the results once again is going to be through these Instagram Reels in the Rob core style. To add to this, the clipping army is something that hasn't worked too effectively for him just yet. So for the time being, I'm going to X this out because really all of the top of funnel content that Rob is pulling in is just through doing this really good Rob core style, and then again, mainly through Instagram. Now, to go through the team of how he actually does this, you can tell they are batch recorded, and also just from some information I've got, I know they are batch recorded, and you can also tell by the way that he's producing them, they're a very loose script, so likely 1 to 3 bullet points that he's going off of, and then also a core idea for the video. For example, a very good one he did was on a study of lab rats.
This experiment is dark, but it proves something real about belief. Scientists put rats in water to see how long they tread before drowning. On average, they last about 15 minutes.
Now you can see with that video, there's a very good core idea. And from that point, all he has to do is touch on a few points that relate to him personally to make it a good piece of content. Now, something he does that is highly effective in this period is what I call outfit swapping. So even though he's sitting down to batch record the content, probably in spurts of weeks to a month at a time, he's also got a wardrobe set up so his content always appears authentic. And this is a massive part of his brand as well that I'm going to cover. But overall, the combining of these two allows him to have leverage on the short form content because ultimately Rob has priorities other than spending lots of time being an influencer, such as running his monetization business, but also just pursuing his interests like his family and music. Now, beyond that, he has in-house editors managing this team. I know this through the breakdown that I did. He is a guy named Audie Gonzalez and a team under him that actually manage all the production for the videos. And previously he had worked with agencies to do this. So I do want to mention that it was important to pioneer his style. However, it wasn't the core driver that he's using to again get all the traffic that made you and I know of him. Another very important note is that in the post-production, Rob has a highly templatized style. What I mean by this is that there are constants in the post-production edit that are going to be replicated time and time again, which means that you can pump out a large amount of them on a consistently frequent basis. To highlight what a few of these are, just for your understanding, the black box style is a constant theme that he is using. The music usually follows the exact same format and is under the exact same genre and style. Beyond that, the actual setting that he's in, so as I mentioned in the gear section, he's shooting from a single camera. He has a nice background. He has a single chair that he's sitting in, the constantly changing clothing, like I mentioned, the wide angle lens on that single camera to give a very spacious feel to the shot. And then in addition to that, likely a teleprompter with the actual core points. So as he's sitting down to record, he's just constantly looking at the camera, like I mentioned. Some very more minor details examples of this are every single time that they will cut to B-roll, they will use what is called a film flash animation. And what this does is it gives an impression that the video is being highly edited. However, it's actually pretty simple how they are just consistently slotting in and out the clips. Now, to cover the meat and bones of this section, why does he actually do this? Well, to give you the short answer is that he wants attention. As you can tell, and really just by looking at his overall brand, Rob has ambitions further than just being a course seller or pushing his community $1 million brand club. He wants to use it to fund out other ventures and assets. So, for example, his attention wants to become this very big asset that he can disperse between different sections of his ecosystem. So for example, he has things like music that he puts the time to. He has things like his other businesses and ventures that he's doing, but I'll just, for example, name his biggest, which is $1 Million Brand Club. And then beyond that, he'll also have other ventures that he's going ahead and doing. A very simple example of this can be using his brand to actually get connections, which can be used to once again further his overall actual practice. And again, something from his story where he talks about this is he actually had dinner with Peter Thiel. And while I can't attribute it directly to his brand, it is something that he will get more and more opportunities alike as his brand continues to grow. Now, another high-level concept as to why he does this is because once you have this very big source of attention here, it can be siphoned out and funneled to different sections. So Instagram is a very top-of-funnel platform because viewers are only spending a minute amount of time with you. However, he can use that to push to different parts of his ecosystem, like his middle funnel, which we're covering next, and then use that to monetize, or he can push it to a platform like TikTok, which actually has a younger actual demographic of audience, so he might be able to do something along the lines of promoting his music more. Something that I will continue to repeat is that Instagram is like a control tower for your personal brand, because through these stories that you post mainly, you can actually send people to different parts and different platforms where you can begin to grow more and more omnipresent and deliver to the 1% fans of your actual audience. The overall sentiment I'm trying to explain here is that it is not as simple as just sending a lot of traffic to your YouTube and then use the YouTube to sell a course. He is building a much larger ecosystem throughout this entire process, and the reason why it actually works is because of his highly eccentric brand and personality, which we'll be covering last, exactly how he's built it. Then from that point on, he is also going ahead and using all of the stuff that he's producing here to make himself actually pushed as an authority. So a great example of this is on his Instagram bio at this time of recording. He does not have his funnel linked where you can opt in and then speak to an appointment setter. He instead has the Forbes article where he sold his company for $30 million. And because of that, anybody that's landing from his Instagram traffic is going to begin to like him more. And then when he puts up stories directing you to different parts of his ecosystem, or you just naturally find out about him on different platforms, you already have a higher amount of trust with him, which you can use once again to offshoot you in different directions. Now, in addition to this, the core thing that ties into him being eccentric here is once again going to be the volume. Now, this is something that is highly, highly underestimated because there's two different types of actual volume that we can go after. First off, there is volume within a shortened duration of time. So a great example of this is somebody like TJR. So TJR, when you look at his stuff and you break down his stuff, he's been doing 16 to 20 TikToks a day for over 2.5 years. That is a ridiculous amount of volume that honestly 99% of people will not be able to replicate. However, on Rob's end, what's made his stuff work is that he's able to consistently manage the one-a-day Rob course style, and he did that over the span of about a year. And what this does is it gives him the baseline level of input, as you can see here, in order to actually go ahead and make the improvements will eventually lead to an exponential growth on the actual content he's producing. Now, the last section that I can't really put on a whiteboard for this one is the use of controversy in his short form content. If you consistently look at the messaging that he's using in this Rob course style, it is always almost inflammatory material. It can be things like the topic of having multiple girlfriends and wives, or it can be the topic of why you're going to stay forever broke if you don't do X thing. The overall sentiment here is that it is creating heavily, heavily charged emotions in the people that actually read it. And if I had to guess the basis of where this comes from, his favorite book is called Anti-Fragile by a man named Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and it talks about how the algorithm is anti-fragile, which inherently means that whether positive attention is fed to it or whether negative attention is fed to it, it will continue to exponentially grow. This is why we see stuff like social media politics be such a flagrant topic that gets so popular, because once again, both negative and positive attention feed into it, and it creates this very charged bubble that then gets dispersed. He's done the exact same thing with the topics that he decides to actually speak about. So the next section for Rob is going to be his middle of funnel, and this is comprised completely by one platform and one platform only, which is the use of YouTube. Like we spoke about in the last section, we have this massive eyeball that represents all the top funnel content that is actually coming into Rob's ecosystem. But from this point on, the key thing that's going to create the element of trust. So once again, just to illustrate this, we're solving for the variable of trust here. And in order to create this element of just raw attention, in order to trust, we need some form of vertical. And what represents the crossing of this bridge is a simple thing, which is time. So the amount of time spent with somebody is going to be the correlation and time bridge between how much we trust them. A great example of this is we might not particularly like our siblings or certain family members, but because of the amount of time we spend with them, we begin to like them and associate positive feelings with them, when otherwise in our just general realities, we might not associate with them. Another more extreme example of this is the Stockholm Syndrome. So a prisoner and somebody who's been taken captive begins to actually get feelings of trust and likability for somebody just because the sheer amount of time they're spending with them. And while I don't like to point to darker concepts to illustrate business and ethical concepts, it does actually just portray the general effectiveness of this concept. So when we have this very big eyeball and attention that we're now getting from this short form content, we are going to move it over to YouTube, because YouTube represents a lot of time spent. While someone might decide to watch a single morsel of content from you on Instagram, that might lead to, like I've mentioned here, 60 to maybe even less than that, maybe even 30 to 60 seconds of them just watching and consuming your content. And that's not that good, because if you compare that to somebody deciding to watch a single YouTube video from you, that can range anywhere from 10 minutes long all the way up to, well, like 30, 60 minutes long. And once again, the more time we can make them spend with us, the more that they will like us. So because of that, we want to use the shorter time periods in the actual short form content to once again have a lower amount of variables to optimize to get more reach and more attention, and then funnel that down into a platform like YouTube, where we will then have far more time to actually spend with people and then convert them. But now that I've explained why he actually does YouTube, the core strategy is going to be how. Because if you just follow this simple logic I've outlined here, the answer of how the perfect YouTube strategy might look for you is something along the lines of, all right, let's say this bracket here represents a week. Let me post 3 times a week, as many times as possible, and have it be the most boring business style content. So therefore, they trust me the most and I make the most money possible. And that is not the case, because if you do that, what will happen is you begin to just bore your audience generally, and you're also going to end up repeating a lot of the same information over and over and over again, and you get put in a box where it's actually very difficult to grow. Because while YouTube is a great platform for building the trust, it can also be a great platform for growing your audience and actually reaching to new people. So when you put yourself in this box here, you're relying purely on the traffic coming from your short form here. And once again, if there's no congruency in the overall level of entertainment that you have, there are probably not going to be that many people that come over and stay. They might go, oh, this guy makes good stuff, but he has these very boring business videos and I don't really like them, so I'm not going to spend much time in his ecosystem. Whereas if you have really good YouTube content, people are going to continue to spend a lot more time on your YouTube channel and therefore pay you. And this is why I want to explain the strategy that Rob uses, which is very similar to Iman Gadzhi, This is called the Flywheel VSL, and how it pretty much works is that instead of consistently posting very boring style information content over here, what we are doing is we're creating a set video that is the most boring and the most informational video ever, and we're creating new videos on our channel that are actually meant to provide value to the viewer in a way that is more informative, but then also more entertaining, and then as a result funnel into this video. And what makes this strategy so effective is that once again, it leads to congruency between the short form content we're posting here and the actual Flywheel VSL that we're actually going to be directing people to, because somebody will watch our short form content, they'll go over here and they'll go like, oh, this makes sense, and this kind of content is very beneficial. The perfect example of a video on his channel that does this is how to become so productive that it feels illegal. That video is by no means a business video that's going to make somebody buy his product, which is the $1 Million Brand Club. However, what it does do is it provides entertainment to the viewer in a way that is congruent with how he does the short form content. And because of that, this link of trust is built and more time is spent in a longer format here. And then what he does is he links it back to the Flywheel VSL video, which is just this very big video here, which I'll break down in just a second, which is then going to push people into different parts of his ecosystem, because now they're making a single commitment to watching one big boring video. Now, to understand why this works, we have to look at the kind of offering that Rob actually has. It's more of a D2C mixed with B2B offering. And what this means is that he's not necessarily just selling, hey, make your first dollar online. He's selling a mix between TikTok Shop end, which is far more relevant to the beginners of his audience, but then also an Amazon FBA end, and kind of meshing them into one very big e-com oriented solution. And why this is so powerful is that his audience of somebody who can buy from him is extremely wide, and therefore means that he has a very large capture net with his kind of content that he produces. So because of that, if he spends his entire time just making these very boring business videos time and time and time again, he's actually limiting the amount of people that can buy from him. Because that fly trap is so large, it has a lot more emotion involved in actually selling it compared to the just sheer amount of logic, as if he was selling a purely high ticket product to just a more consumerist and far more sophisticated audience. So to continue, his Flywheel VSL is then going to move into his calendar here, and then that is where we're going to officially begin the bottom of the funnel, where he goes ahead and converts all the attention he's getting into cash. So to explain what the Flywheel VSL is and why it works, we're going to go all the way down here just so I have some space. And pretty much this is a strategy pioneered by Iman, like I mentioned, and your goal is to convince a viewer who has perceived a lot of emotional value. So remember, these videos over here, the short form content, everything we're doing in our ecosystem up to this point is emotional value. Yes, we might be giving people aha moments and epiphanies, but we're not doing it in a tactical business implementation way. However, in this video, we're going to completely flip that script on its head with the Flywheel VSL. Excuse my spelling. So how we're going to do this and what the formula for that looks like is we're going to want to make this video pretty much as long as possible while just maintaining a concise presentation. This is usually going to be around 60 minutes. Marker switch. This is usually going to be around 60 minutes long, and in that video, the methodology and how we actually go through presenting them the information is going to be completely different than this video over here. We might want to have multiple cameras, or we might want to have editing in the video. We're going to be focused completely on how to deliver the information in a tactical way. And in that case, you have a few different examples. Iman initially did his with a slideshow, and then after that, he did a kind of card style similar to Simon Squibb. And then what Rob does is he actually goes through and just uses a pretty simple whiteboard. And if you look at the actual video he's using, the production value is not that great on it. The whiteboard isn't that readable, and it's pretty small compared to him, and the camera's a little bit off center, but that really just shows you that this video is just about cashing in on all of this emotional goodwill that you've built up in the earlier sections of the funnel. Now, within this video, how you can actually make it something that converts for you is the more complex part, because you pretty much are taking somebody who just really likes you, trusts you. You're just some rich guy from the internet that keeps delivering them epiphanies. And now you have to take all that frame and goodwill you've built up with them and somehow transmute it into a logical person that is now ready to just go ahead and take your solution. And in order to do this, the most important part, and where majority of the Flywheel VSL is centered around, is just breaking beliefs. Now, I'm not biased to teach you any business model and methodology of how you should make money, unless you want to do YouTube. But I want to just really illustrate that that is all they are doing here. They are not going ahead and trying to create the most advanced and just crazy solution for you to plug and play or the best camera quality recording. That is not what you're doing at this stage in the funnel. You've already done that with all of the emotional top of funnel, middle funnel based content. Your goal is just to break beliefs. And for him, that's a very simple process. He needs to break the belief of Amazon FBA. He needs to break the belief of dropshipping, and he needs to break the belief of ecom and TikTok shop. And then these are the primary competitors that he has. So these are the business models that I consider somebody relatively warm to if they have awareness of that. And then more so where the short form content actually plays in is where he has the other business models that he wants to break beliefs around. So this is stuff like SMMA. That's where I personally ran my coaching business and started my own kind of business journey. Then we also have trading. And then we have any other business model that any of the kids do these days. So like crypto, reselling, all this other stuff here. And while these ones are important, the goal is to mainly focus on these business models here because he's going to move this into what's called a value stack. So SMA, trading, reselling, just by solving for these business models not being a good fit, you are also kind of relegating these business models. And at this point, they already trust you so much that if you're not going to mention it, then it's okay. And they might just ask a question in the comments or on a sales call. That is okay. But you want to core cover the business models that your customer and your ideal customer might be thinking about starting right now, because once he goes through and systematically in the video, he goes ahead and says, nope, Amazon, it's kind of outdated in the way that a lot of people are doing it. It's just the FBA, dropshipping, tariffs, China, that's going to be destroyed. Then you got ecom here. This takes too long to start a brand and spend the years of just doing organic content and managing suppliers, all this stuff here. And finally, you have TikTok here. Well, this can work, but it also relies on you consistently going viral on the algorithm. And because of that, it's difficult to sustain and actually just consistently make revenue with. At this point in this flywheel VSL, you start to think to yourself, well, like, what are you doing then? Because you made your money with Amazon FBA here. He sold the Genius brand for $30 million, but then you just told me that doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. So what is the solution here? And then this is where it gets really genius in the way that his whole funnel works, because he then goes into the value stack element of what he's actually doing. And this is not where he's selling his solution. I want to keep that in mind. He's creating a dream opportunity of what could actually exist before he mentions the fact that he has a solution like conveniently later in the video. So he then goes, okay, well, what if you used all the benefits of Amazon as a marketplace, all of the important perks of drop shipping and not having to manage everything yourself, all of the e-com brand reputation and equity that you're building up, and all of the potential virality of TikTok. And pretty much what he's saying is that where one of these models falls on their face, the other model is going to compensate for it in this very big combined kind of model that Rob is calling the next gold rush. And he calls it specifically the TikTok shop gold rush, which I wrote virality here, but it's the TikTok shop gold rush is the name of the new opportunity that he has built. TikTok, all right, whatever. TikTok Shop Gold Rush. And the reason why this once again is so effective is because A, there's a massive amount of scarcity around this. Being a gold rush, it won't last forever. And then he also immediately attacks the kind of elephant in the room on its head, where he says, yeah, I'm selling you the shovel for this gold rush, but I'm also doing this myself. He shows all the brands he's working with, which is a massive part of the credibility here. And then finally, in addition to all of the stuff that he does, just showing you the model, he is then going to make it accessible to you by pretty much just saying like, hey, here's the opportunity and here's what I've got for you. And what's so great about the way that he does this is he doesn't make somebody say, all right, well, if you want to see success at this, just, hey, pay me. He intentionally in the description of the video has all the links to the softwares that somebody can use. And what he does here is he has affiliates. So he's obviously going to just stack up some recurring income, which is a great way to just have baseline level cash flow for your team or recurring expenses. So he's making money by helping somebody for free. but he's also going to give people the potential to just go ahead and learn more. And he's not sharing you the price or anything. He's not going direct to cart like somebody like Iman would. He is going straight to the bottom of funnel section here, where he is just going to go ahead and say, all right, well, if you are interested, and this does sound like something that you might want to do, you can go ahead and just take out the form in the description. And then the form is, of course, going to lead to a call. Now, this page that he runs is extremely simple. He runs a direct to book a call with a Typeform Calendly. So to just give you a breakdown of kind of what it looks like is he's got the page here, and he does a great job outlining the scarcity on the page. So he uses the TikTok Shop Gold Rush, and throughout this entire video, pretty much all he does is he goes through and talks about, hey, you've seen my lifestyle, you've seen all this great stuff around my brand. Once again, if you want to capitalize on this gold rush like I, who did in the last one and sold a $30 million company, just fill out the description or the type form in the description and lower on down on this page. So why this is so effective directing people to the type form directly is because there is going to be no friction based off all the pre-selling he did in the middle of funnel with the Flywheel VSL. He does not have any case studies on this page, nothing. Like no case studies, no real sales tactics in the videos. He is just reminding them of why they are here in the first place. And this works not because this is some genius kind of funnel. Now, I will give him credit. It's a very good looking funnel, and he worked with an agency. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, Brandwatch or something. He has a nice looking funnel that is congruent to the messaging and the overall theme of who he is in his centric character. But what makes this actually work is the fact that he's built such a strong middle of funnel. His top of funnel is good. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of people with good top of funnels. What's very different and what makes it so effective for him is his middle of funnel leading into the bottom of funnel is so powerful with that Flywheel VSL that, again, even if they watch the Flywheel VSL and they don't buy from him, he's still making money on affiliate subscriptions off of them. So they can go ahead, go through this page, get reminded. And once again, this video is a very fast format. It's not like his YouTube video where it's whiteboard. It's right back to that middle funnel style content that leads to the Flywheel VSL, where it's very animated. It's moving around. He's walking around his house. He's outside with a motorcycle. And that, again, gives congruency. Boom, type form. After they fill out the type form, there are multi-directions based on their qualification. So like I mentioned, he has a very wide kind of basket of where somebody can fall in his ecosystem. So if I had to take my best gander based off his conditional logic and form questions, he probably has 3 different buckets of lead quality, maybe potentially 4, just based on the investment, how long they've been running their brand, etc. Probably mainly based on the investment amount because he is very transparent about that. And then from this point on, one of the most important questions that he says in this form is, hey, are you okay with my sales team reaching out to you? And while it might seem like that's a minor one, it does a great job of once again establishing the complete clarity. Rob is in a position and comes from a kind of branding aspect where he's already sold his company for $30 million. He's the rich uncle just trying to help you. So when he is going to sell you something, he doesn't want to give across the brand interpretation that he's just another one of these gurus that is trying to pitch you. He wants to go, no, I have something to sell. You can buy this thing from me. However, I just want to be transparent. This is something that you actually want, right? And it is so powerful to just be upfront about the actual offering that you have, because from this point on, no matter what bucket they fall into, likely what happens on the back end is I tested probably these 3 of the conditional logics based on the different forms that I filled out for this video. There is definitely an option where if you say your investment amount is too low, you're not going to be reached out to by the sales team. The logic ends here. It is done. But from these points on, it is very simple. The actual process of what happens next does not change. The only thing that changes is the way that you're treated and the way that they frame the product to you based on who you are as a person. So for example, if you've never started a brand before, it's likely going to be a lot more beginner focused as you go through the rest of the funnel. And this is going to be very relevant for people who have money on board, maybe have business experience, but don't currently have a TikTok shop business that is just printing during this gold rush. Next one, 3 and 4 here are likely people that have e-commerce or dropshipping experience and trying to get into it. And then this is somebody that's probably already running a TikTok shop page, TikTok shop, bear with me. So from this point on, the only thing that changes in the funnel based off these form answers is going to be the actual quality of how the salesperson treats you. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to demean you if you're a beginner. It just means they're going to be a lot more focused on the beginning aspects of the program and the lens of through how it's framed, rather than if you were this TikTok shop person where they might just say to you, hey, I want to go ahead and just teach you the advanced strategies, et cetera, et cetera. And the goal of where all of this culminates to, and where I think his brand really becomes genius, is he's done a similar play to Hormozy, but just on a little bit of a different level with PE. So just like Hormozy, where he sold Gym Launched for $40 million, I believe, to private equity, Rob sold the Genius brand for $30 million. He's had experience with private equity, and because of this, he is a PE arm of his own operation, meaning that he's actually willing to invest into some of the brands that join his program and have this be the whole goal of his company. So some examples of him doing this are Killtech, though that might be arguably through a connection. Another one is Evil Goods, arguably through a connection with Jake Tran. And there are a few others that have been kept more quiet. Now he's decided to keep these more private, so I don't know exact names, but he does still frame it as, hey, if you do well in this program, my goal is to take some of the money that I have generated from both you and everybody else that joins this. And then also, he doesn't say it like that, but he also has this very large nest egg that he's sitting on and says, hey, I have this money. I want to invest in brands that are winning in this gold rush. And this is my way of finding and nurturing all those people at the exact same time. So he will then go and just take this money, invest it into his customers' brands, which does a great job on the front end in the info side of just framing it as this non kind of pushy money grab, and instead having it be perceived as, oh, well, this guy actually cares and he's trying to go on a long-term play here. So when people join, they're a lot more incentivized to see on a long-term time horizon rather than just 30 to 90 days. And because of that, he gets great success within the actual program. Now that is the complete funnel breakdown. This was the first video on this channel, so let me know what you think. I know there's a lot more to still improve. However, I hope that the value you got from this video is worth the time that you spent, and I will see you guys in the next one.